Hello and welcome to another episode of Alfzu. Today, Chris Little from Newburyport, Massachusetts, is going to teach us everything there is to know about DevOps. DevOps is a term that can sound esoteric to some, but is extremely hot right now. It's the it girl of IT, if you will. Welcome to the zoo, Chris. I think this is the first time you're here, right?
Yes, and thank you very much for inviting me. It took a little bit of scheduling to make this happen, but I'm so glad we were able to do it.
I'm glad I finally. And is this this is the first day of beautiful spring there in Massachusetts, Newburyport, is it?
Yes. This is an OMG day for Newburyport, Massachusetts. It is the reward for our many months of winter.
Yeah, as a Swede, I know exactly what you mean. In that house of yours, we can't really see it. You have a concoction of Internet of Things. Earlier, when you changed the light, you reached over to your iPad and pushed a button. Tell us what's going on over there.
Well, I mean, I've got a lot of stuff. I love the Internet of Things. That's what they're calling it now. But it's like I've got Hue for the lights. I've got Nest. I've got Belkin controls for all the devices, like TVs and lights, and things go on and off. And I've got sensors and all that sort of thing. And it's a wonderful time to be alive because you can just get so much insight into what's actually going on. You've got a lot of control, and you can just do a lot of stuff. I love it.
And does this in any shape or form, and I don't want to go in on a long philosophical discussion, but does this in any shape or form improve your life? The light settings, the timers?
Oh, yes, because it removes friction. It makes certain things. For example, I started. Here's an obscure one. I started testing how much draw sleeping electronics have, and I realized that there's actually some pretty severe draw. And so I was looking at my electric bill, and I thought, well, what can I do about this? So as I tested it, I discovered if I turned off the TV and all of the related stuff when it wasn't being used, I mean, turn it off. And so what I did is, well, rather than having to do off switch or unplug it, I got these controls, and the controls can all be addressed by my phone. And even more than that, I tell my phone when I want it, when I want the stuff to go on and off, and so it's all happening automatically. So if we want to go watch a movie, we walk into the room, and there's a zone in which I've got all of that stuff that it turns on, and it happens to be the only time zone. It's in the evening. But during the day, it's all turned off, and I don't have to do anything. It's all automated, and I've got stuff like that all over the house. And then, of course, things like the Nest. You can inquire about temperatures. You can inquire about CO2 levels. All that sort of stuff. So you can find out a lot more than. It's really cool having intelligent things.
So all these, because this is really happening right now. More and more people are starting to deploy this in their rooms, and this is fairly new technology, but at the end of the day, they're just apps, right? It's just happening all the time, and people beyond this Internet of Things are expecting new innovation just like this. Is that why DevOps is so hot in the enterprise right now? Why is it so hot?
Oh, that was a heck of a segue. I should also add that I'm a avid learner of new things, and I get gadgets. I mean, I've got even like things like Google Glass. I mean, it's like I just get lots of gadgets. Anyway, DevOps is hot because it transforms how IT works, and it makes a remarkable difference. If you look at companies, I mean, it's very buzzy right now, and what a lot of people don't realize is that DevOps may be buzzy, but it started as a practitioner-led thing. It was not created by any vendors. Vendors were very late to this. It started by practitioners saying, this is how we make IT faster, more reliable. In particular, there was a Velocity conference presentation by John Allspaw and Paul Hammond, where in 2009, where they said, at Flickr we're doing 10 releases a day, and it silenced the room, it floored the room. And then the people started talking, and they realized that there were techniques and things that you could do that made application release that much faster. A fellow by the name of Patrick Dubois called that DevOps, and it just kind of went from there. And it's phenomenal. I mean, just off the top, companies. I mean, it's come now far enough that vendors are talking about it. Companies do it, and they're starting to be able to measure the difference. Companies that do DevOps practices, and there's a whole bucket full of things. Everything from continuous delivery, continuous integration. There's a monitoring element. There's a whole bucket of things that goes under the term DevOps. But deployment frequencies are 30 times faster. Mean time to recover is like 12 times faster, and that's just from using DevOps practices. So if you got an IT shop, that's a huge difference, right?
I know people starting to understand that now, or we're building more apps now. Or is
it's still got a ways to go because it's still really buzzy. There's a lot of vendors that are throwing stuff in, saying, this is our new DevOps toolbox, this is our new DevOps dashboard, but the practitioners are definitely adopting it. So you're seeing a lot of grassroots adoption, and in some cases, it's not necessarily by adopting things like continuous delivery. It's because maybe development adopted Agile, and so now they're doing these iterations that are coming out, and operations is going, we had trouble handling when you were giving us a release every 8 months. Now that you're giving us a release every 2 weeks, how do we do that? And you do that by adopting DevOps, by adopting the DevOps philosophy of these practices. And it's a bit of a transition. A lot of companies are undertaking it. I've had a lot of conversations. BMC, we have customers like Macy's, and they've, Gary Groover over there is very advanced in his understanding, and they're adopting tools. A lot of the discussions in DevOps are around automation, but automation isn't the whole thing. But automation is a big deal because it helps make the transformation possible. Anyway,
what is the role of take the two groups, Dev and Ops, and we'll talk about their relationship in a second. But what's their role now in the enterprise? Are they niche player that are called upon to do certain work like they used to do, or are they starting to become a more centralized role as we become more IT intensive?
Well, Alf, they're more centralized. A statement that I believe very strongly is that today every business is in the IT business, regardless of what business they think they're in. And companies that embrace that have competitive advantage, and companies that don't embrace that so far seem to be going out of business or suffering horribly.
Yeah.
And so IT is now central. So whatever business you're in, you're also in the IT business. And IT is historically, I mean, to your point about developers and operations, had this fracture between developers and operations. Developers wanted to introduce change in the form of new features and responding to customers, and operations wanted reliability, which means usually means no change, right? And so they had to come together. And in coming together, which is what the philosophy of DevOps is really about, they moved away from focusing on minimizing failure, in a sense, to embracing failure, to accepting that there will be failures, and it's how quick you recover from those failures that makes the difference. And so often when you join DevOps discussions, like at DevOps Days and other things, you will find people don't talk about mean time between failure, which is the old measure in IT. They talk about mean time to recovery, which is the new measure. And the difference there is that in mean time to recovery, you're embracing the fact that you're going to have failure, whereas mean time between failure, you're avoiding it for as long as possible. So it's a phenomenal change. I mean, the mean time to recovery of firms that adopt DevOps practices is 12x over companies that don't.
Really?
Yeah, it's huge. That's a huge difference. And I've got examples, and I give them in some presentations. I've got examples of companies over the last couple of years that have actually just gone out of business because they were not able to do mean time to recovery at any recent rate. Knight Capital, they accidentally put a QA system into prod, and it ran orders, and those orders lost them $10 million a minute on average, and by the time they had recovered from it, they were out of business. Wow. So I mean, it's like, it's big. But they thought they were a trading company. What they didn't realize is that they were an IT company with a trading license, which goes back to that thing, where it's everybody's in the IT business, and people who understand that have a competitive advantage, and the people who don't are in trouble.
The relationship between developer and the guys who are running operations has always been a bit tender. Have tools, including the stuff that we from BMC sell, has that helped bridge that gap? Are there more peace between the two groups, or are they still fighting?
I think there's more peace between the two groups. They still fight, but not as much, particularly with automation, because automation on the operations side really makes operations far better able to support developers' needs, development's goals, which are generally to introduce new features that are response to customer demand. And with automation, operations is able to support that. Without automation, and blade logic, there's a whole bunch of different types of products out there, but they all involve automation to make operations more effective and more efficient. And that efficiency enables operations to more directly satisfy developer need. And that makes the two camps happier. They're actually, it's funny, they're two separate tribes, but they were originally one tribe. They were originally one, and they were like separated. And now some of the words they use the same words, but they don't have the same meaning. Like release means one thing for a developer, means something else for operations.
Interesting. I don't know. You write a blog, or no? You have a podcast, not podcast. You have a videocast that is available to the public out there.
Yeah, the BMC DevOps Leadership Series. I curate that, and what we do is we have interviews with all of the major players in DevOps. Patrick Dubois, who invented the term; Gene Kim, who's a best-selling author; Mark Burgess, who practically single-handedly invented automated configuration management 20 years ago. And these folks, what we do is we bring them under the BMC banner, and I work out a series of questions with them about things that they'd like to talk about, and then we record that, and I also have it transcribed. So for those of us like myself who prefer to read rather than to
just drivel. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So you can find it all at bmc.com/devops. Yeah. And there's videos there. There's a bunch of stuff. So it's a good resource. If you're looking to catch up on DevOps, that's definitely one of the places to go.
Great. Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate you took the time coming to the zoo, talk about a topic that is, as I said, is very hot, but it's hard. It's not that much being written about it. It's not really part of the everyday discussion groups. So it's important for us to follow along and understand its evolution.
Yeah.
So thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
The rest of you out there, take care. Be safe.